Hi there, my name's Keller, and I'm going to do a review of Aaron Swartz's system of governance. For those who don't know, today is November the 8th, would have been Aaron Swartz's 34th birthday. Aaron Swartz was one of the co-founders of Reddit. He was, frankly speaking, exceptionally intelligent. I believe he was giving speeches to audiences of 100 plus by the age of like 15, maybe even 12 years old. I can't recall, but much younger than is sensible, frankly. And he invented RSS, which for those don't know, that's the well, I can't really describe it, but that's the news feed system that is all over the internet, basically. And he also was a big promoter of the Creative Commons license. Now, that said, he was also a very big political activist. Now, I'm not going to read this comment here, but this is just a comment that kind of details out some of his political activism, but ultimately the thing that got him arrested and then charged with 30 years of prison, and then subsequently he was found hung by the neck in his apartment, either through depression or through some kind of foul play, up to you. There's definitely some suspicion of foul play, but I won't go into whether or not it was depression or foul play, but a mix of the two things at the least. Okay, yeah, I'll just stay here for a while I talk. So, in the basic summary of this that I'll give from memory is that Aaron Swartz, actually, I'll look this up here. He wrote something called the Gorilla Manifesto. Gorilla Manifesto. Gorilla Open Access Manifesto. Okay, so this was written by Aaron Swartz in 2008. So, okay, let's just go ahead and do the math here. He would have been 34 today. So that would have been written when he was, wait a second. Yeah, 22. This would have been written when he was 22 visiting Italy. So, actually, let's read this, because I'll read this aloud, because this is kind of the summation of his form of government and also the thing that led to him getting charged and then subsequently killed. So, Gorilla Open Access Manifesto. Information is power, but like all power, there are those who want to keep it for themselves. The world's entire scientific and cultural heritage, published over centuries in books and journals, is increasingly being digitized and locked up by a handful of private corporations. Want to read the papers featuring the most famous results of sciences? You'll need to send enormous amounts to publishers like Reed Elsevier. There are those struggling to change this. The Open Access Manifesto has fought valiantly to ensure that scientists do not sign their copyrights away, but instead ensure their work is published on the internet, under terms that allow anyone to access it. But even under the best scenarios, their work will only apply to things published in the future. Everything up until now has been lost. Will have been lost. That is too high a price to pay. Forcing academics to pay money to read the work of their colleagues, scanning entire libraries, but only allowing the folks at Google to read them, providing scientific articles to those at elite universities in the first world, but not to children in the global south. It's outrageous and unacceptable. I agree, many say. But what can we do? The companies hold the copyrights. They make enormous amounts of money by charging for access, and it's perfectly legal. There's nothing we can do to stop them. But there is something we can, something that's already being done. We can fight back. those with access to these resources, students, librarians, scientists, you have been given a privilege. You get to feed at this banquet of knowledge while the rest of the world is locked out. But you need not, indeed morally you cannot, keep this privilege for yourselves. You have a duty to share it with the world, and you have, trading passwords with colleagues, filling download requests for friends. Meanwhile, those who have been locked out are not standing idly by. You have been sneaking through holes and climbing over fences, liberating the information locked up by these publishers and sharing them with your friends. But all of this action goes on in the dark, hidden underground. It's called stealing or piracy, as if sharing a wealth of knowledge were the moral equivalent of plundering a ship and murdering its crew. But sharing isn't immoral. It's a moral imperative. Only those blinded by greed would refuse to let a friend make a copy. Large corporations, of course, are blinded by greed. The laws under which they operate require it. Their shareholders would revolt at anything less. And the politicians they have bought off back them, passing laws giving them the exclusive power to decide who can make copies. There is no justice in following unjust laws. It's time to come into the light. In the grand tradition of civil disobedience, declare our opposition to this private theft of public culture. We need to take information wherever it is stored, make our copies and share them with the world. We need to take stuff that's out of copyright and add it to the archive. We need to buy secret databases and put them on the web. We need to download scientific journals and upload them to file sharing networks. We need to fight for guerrilla open access. With enough of us around the world, we'll not just send a strong message opposing the privatization of knowledge, we'll make it a thing of the past. Will you join us? Aaron Swartz, July 2008, Ermo, Italy. Okay. Powerful. So, you gotta just let that absorb in. It's hard to move on from words like that. But with this in mind, this is what led Aaron to accessing the JSTOR files through the MIT servers and downloading large swaths of databases that I believe they were mostly like, what are the laws of America and so forth, and he put those on the internet. And then eventually he was charged with millions of dollars of theft, 30 years of jail time. And as you can see, to put this in political context, this was at the rise of the Obama election in 2008. So this is when Obama gets elected in November 2008, and you can kind of just through his writings, Aaron Swartz is on a high, believing that Obama is going to help liberate the world. Perhaps he's a very liberal. He's a very liberal individual and kind of sided with the Democrats at the time. He had a political campaign. I wrote down what it's called, but he had a political campaign, I think, in Massachusetts that was designed to help. PCCC. Okay. Yeah, the PCCC. That's hard to figure out what that's for. But he had this PCCC campaign that was supposed to bring power to the people. And after he died, now one of the things that they helped to do was to elect Elizabeth Warren, but they also helped to do a lot of these phone call campaigns, which basically mobilized large groups of people, and then got them into for those who don't recall, in the 2008 time period of Reddit, you would often find a phone number on the internet to your congressman with instructions to call them, and kind of like a DDoS attack of the congressman. This happened while Aaron Swartz was alive. This happened probably by his doing, because it's the kind of activism that he talked about. So I think he was the one behind it. And then around 2011 or 2012, Reddit put a squash to that type of activism. And you no longer, it used to be the top 5 links on the front page in the year that Obama was running for president. So, just all the time. So I'll talk about a few different things that Aaron Swartz proposed for government. So this is, and I'll just kind of scroll through this because most of his writings are kind of long. So you can read this at your leisure, but I'm going to summarize it very, very quickly. So this is Y to the Power of Exponents. That's the title if you want to search it. And he talks about how a system that was inspired by Stephen Shalom, and there's a good YouTube video where he talks about it. It's like it's a 8-part series, and he talks in like the 4th and 5th one of that series about anarchy and new forms of government. And Aaron Swartz was apparently watching this and got inspired by him and wrote up a paper about it. And so what Aaron said in his system is that you take, which basically is very similar to Stephen Shalom's system, you take people into groups of 50, you have them elect one individual, and then after you get 50 groups of 50, so 2,500 people, now you have 50 elected individuals, and then these 50 elected individuals get into a group of 50, elect one, and so then you can see how in a very quick fashion you can cover. So one level up covers 2,500 people. The next level up covers under 25 people. Next level 6 million, 300 million. That's all of America. And then I think 6 levels up is 15 billion. So that'd be all of the world. And there's multiple reasons why you do this type of system. But in short, the reason that you do this type of system is so that the representative comes from the electors. So you can't elect someone who's not in the room with you. You have to pick one person who's in the room with you. You all have a caucus. That's the other reason you do a system like this, is the only people who are allowed to vote are the people who are caucusing, or the people who are in the room caucusing with you. So you discuss your ideas for an hour. You elect 1 out of 50, and then that person moves up, and that's how the society is run. That's how the government is functioned. Now, I will go on. You can keep reading this. I'll scroll through it. But I'll go on to talk about some of his other political ambitions and political notions. One system that Aaron Swartz was very big on when designing Reddit was the magazine subscription system, which is very similar to this as well. It mimics this as well. So he envisioned Reddit as a magazine service. And so you would go to like Our Baseball, and then you would basically get the type of articles that you would expect to find in Baseball magazine. However, the difference is that the people who write the articles are also the readership. So then you have a system where only those who are most involved in baseball, only those people are forced to read baseball articles by going to the baseball subscription, and they also become the authors of the baseball articles. So that was kind of the first form of social network by interest, as opposed to social networking through the use of personalities. And this was Aaron Swartz's vision. I don't know if Reddit was going to do that without him, but I believe that was his primary contribution, one of his primary contributions, or at least he supported that concept of into Reddit. Now, I believe he believed in a very hands-off moderation style of Reddit, which is not what Reddit is today. But there you go. More of a curation type of moderation as opposed to heavy banning and a lot of control of the of what is said. So we can take these two concepts, the idea of a integrated series of 50 people getting nominated, and the idea of the magazines where the authors, where the readers are also the authors. And Nassim Taleb would call this localism. And Aaron Swartz was a big believer in localism type of thinking and politics, where government is decided by the neighborhoods and communities, and then their ideas go up to the city, the state, and the national level. And you see this most closely reflected in the Swiss government, which is very local based. The Swiss government uses a direct democracy and a lot of localism in their form of government, which I'm sure he was probably aware of. So now he also had another piece that he wrote on government. Give me just a second if I can think of what that was. So he wrote about the newspapers. He wrote about this. Oh, the DDoSing type of thing. So his style of like amplifying people's voices. I already kind of talked about that. Now, in the last years before he died, he did start to become very depressed. He didn't like what the news media or mainstream media was saying in government. He always hated all mainstream media all throughout his life. He hated mainstream media. And that's a big part of why he supported the Reddit and the RSS and the common the Creative Commons license. But yeah, he just hated media all throughout his mainstream media all throughout his life. And after Obama got elected in 2008, and really for those who don't really know, he didn't fulfill a lot of the things that people had hoped that he would fulfill. And I think this depressed Aaron Swartz greatly, either leading to him hanging himself, or at a minimum, or at the other side of things, someone going ahead and just terminating him. But this is also a big deal with WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was kind of coming up in this time, and it's around 2012, I believe, where Assange kind of got imprisoned, and with Julian Assange imprisoned, with Aaron Swartz being threatened with similar charges as Julian Assange of 30 years in jail, with Edward Snowden around this time getting persecuted in Russia and still charged to this day, with that lady who leaked the war, I forget her name, Chelsea Manning, in jail. I believe she was in jail at this time, and she was freed later. So there is a great kind of depression in these political activist communities, and there's all kinds of signs that their plans were not going to succeed. And this here was written in 2012, 4 years after his Gorilla Manifesto. So that's kind of the summation of what kind of inspired him. Was this voluntary form of government where you elected people from within your system and you had a caucusing type of approach to do that. So I would like to talk about something that I did to expand on that. I did this system that I call Bitcoin 1776, and it is a system where you meet into groups of 8. Let me see if I can find my intro flyers. I might be able to. Well, the picture is good. I'll use the picture. So what I took to do, and I've been in political activist for a very, very long time. What I took with that system is I created and modified it with some other inspirations of my own. So instead of groups of 50, I recommended groups of 8, and instead of electing one official, I say we elect 2 officials. And the reason that you elect 2 people is because if it's one person, it's easier for that person to misrepresent the feelings of the group in which they came from. If there's 2 people, at least there's 2 different voices sharing what the group underneath them, what their desires were. So that's the system I came up with, was using iterations of 8 instead of iterations of 50. And instead of in-person meetings, I think you could use Zoom meetings in today's world. And if you want to sign up, you just go to this website. Once it'll probably take me 200 people before I'll actually get enough people to do a trial run of this government. I do have some sponsorship, so if you do want to do it, it pays out or whatever. But the real point is to try to create a better world government. So you can see, I call my groups juntos after Benjamin Franklin. So you can see how you have four groups meeting, you elect 2 people, this creates a new group of 8. So I'll go on into some other modifications that I made to that system that Stephen Shalom and Aaron Swartz were promoting, which I will say was this iterative approach where the government never expands beyond 8. That was very much inspired by them. So another thing I incorporated into this was something from Thomas Jefferson's second draft of the original Constitution of Virginia, where he said that a portion of the elected representatives, you should basically roll a dice and kick them out of office just randomly. And you do this to prevent corruption. He took this from what the Athenians did. In the Athenian original forms of democracy, elected officials were largely just randomly picked from crowds. And when you have elected officials randomly picked from crowds, then you don't have the corruption that you have with elected government. Like Romans were elected government, and Athenians were random government, basically. And so you have the least amount of corruption with random government, but you don't have the efficiency that you get when you have elected government. Elected government, you get better people in the post. But with too much election, you have corruption. So what Jefferson did is he said that you have a portion of these people randomly prevented from moving on to office just with the roll of a dice, and that's something else I incorporated into my system. 1 in 4 people of these 8 cannot be elected to go to the next level, and it's just a random roll of dice that determines who that is. And you do this to prevent the demagogue type of candidates, where like I'll just say a Hillary or a Trump for the old times. A Hillary or a Trump is trying to get the top spot and promoting only themselves rather than the good of society. But with the system, the way that I designed it, if you had the whole world involved, it'd be about 15 people, but like realistically, you'd have about 7 layers of government. And that's with 7 layers of government and 1 in 4 getting eliminated, they would have at least a 50%, if not greater, chance of being prevented from reaching top spot. So this would help to get new ideas, get ideas promoted instead of just people's. So you have the groups of 8 electing 2. You have some portion of these people prevented from moving up. And then you also have what is the purpose of government. This is another thing that I had to think about greatly. What is the purpose of government? And in that, this is where I largely sided with Benjamin Franklin's interpretation of what is the purpose of government, which basically says that the purpose of government is to improve yourself and to improve society, or improve your neighbors in your community. So improve yourself and to improve society. So that's what I have as the basis of the discussions that you have in these small groups. When you get in these groups, the things you discuss are how are you improving your own life, and how are you improving your community or our society. How are you improving your community? So I had those kind of 3 inspirations that I combined. Those were my primary 3 inspirations that I combined into this system. Aaron Swartz, Stephen Shalom's fixed unit system where it never grows beyond groups of 8, which prevents like 500 people sitting on the House of Representatives or whatever it is, that just gets a cacophony of people. So fixed groups of 8. Random elimination of people from Jefferson, and then in terms of the objectives, improving yourself and improving society, which I got from Franklin. Now there's one more thing I did with this. Which is I took from Bitcoin the idea of creating your own currency or your own unit of exchange. So with a system like this, you have to have some form of like monetary monetization. There's like either tax or a budget for the government. And if you don't really have a budget, then you don't really have much effect in government. So then with my system, I got a big pile of coins, which is basically 550,000 coins, but it's a big pile of coins. And I distribute these coins only to these people who get nominated within government. So the way that the budgets work within this government that I designed, there is no centralized budget. These 8 people, they all get 1/8 of that portion of the budget. So your budgets are all individual. So like in my system, let's say there's a Bernie and a Hillary and a Trump and a Biden. A Bernie, a Hillary, and a Trump get nominated, and they all want to spend money and are all campaigning to spend money on this purpose or that purpose. And let's say the award at this stage of the contest was $400 for those representatives. Then Bernie would have $400 to do with what he wants. Hillary would have $400 to do with what she wants. Biden would have $400, and Trump would have $400. Everybody at one stage, they all get an equal amount. There is there is like a inflate. So the tax comes as a form of inflation. So that's a bit of economics that might be too much it's very popular in this moment, so people are kind of aware of it right now. There's dollar bills and money, and then the government has printed like 5 trillion more dollar bills in the last year or so. 2020 kind of pumped this into the economy recently. So that's so out of this 550,000 tokens, those get distributed to these people, and then these people sell them and trade them, and it kind of works as an inflationary aspect. But that's the only form of inflation. And then down the road, what I'd like to do, if this is like way into the future, you'd have a portion of the transaction fees for exchanging these tokens get thrown back into the budget, so then you would not have any inflation. So that would be the goal down the road, is to not have any inflation, and instead it'd effectively be like a sales tax that funds the entire system. And I think that this could really accelerate society really, really, really fast. And with the Zoom meetings of today, I think we're kind of primed for this type of thing. And if you're interested in it, just go to this website here and sign up. Put in your email list. I tried to get it going with like 50 people, and I was spending like $500 on YouTube ads and Twitter ads and all this other thing, but I never really got too far. So I have some money to throw down on this. I've been a Bitcoin investor. And Tesla investor. I've made a little bit of money on my investments, and I'm currently offering people $30 just to participate, and then $100 or $130 if they win the first round, and then $400 if they win the second round. And that's as far as I've gotten, which is about $2,500 in token value. But the tokens, I don't sell the tokens. I give away the tokens through this system only, and then you sell them back to me. I offer you money for them, or you can sell them to anybody you want, but I'll probably be the highest offer to repurchase the tokens, unless there's some investor that comes along, and then you'll get more money for them. But that's the system. And another thing I did in my system that's different from other kind of Bitcoin style blockchains is that I reduced the total number of coins to 17,760,000. So there's like less of these coins than Bitcoins that exist today. It is the most scarce Bitcoin fork. It's been going for about a year and a half. But it's a slow process getting these things off the ground. But if you're interested, and you can sign up there, and I do hope that you take the time to read this. I know it's kind of long, and that you read about Aaron Swartz' system. This is the other thing I was thinking about. He had a thing where he wanted for media campaigns, in order to, because he hated mainstream media in the way that they influenced the vote, with these kind of get out the vote type of things. So what he wanted to do was to get people riding around in bicycles with backpacks full of flyers and just throwing out flyers in neighborhoods. And he kind of imagined, and I'm sure he did this a few times himself, he kind of imagined just riding through a neighborhood, just throwing out a flyer at every single house, just probably in the yard or whatever. And that was his form of campaigning. And you can kind of interpret in that method of campaigning how it's a very people-oriented campaigning. It scales as you get more people involved. So, anyways, that there's so much what you might just adorable things, what you might call adorable things about Aaron Swartz. A very innocent and soft-spoken soul. Kind of like Seth Rich, I think. I think Seth Rich had a lot of hopes in government before he got killed as well. But It happens to a lot of people. It happens to a lot of people. And it doesn't need to happen. And you can't change. I don't believe that it's possible to change this government. I think any government that exists, it cannot be changed, and therefore I think you have to make a new one. So if you want to do that, you can join me in my attempt to make a new world government using Zoom calls and a global organization strategy. And this is my website here if you'd like to check it out. All right, thank you so much. Take care.